Mortal Engines by Philip Reeve, Part 1, Chapter 17, The Pirate Suburb. Late that night, and deep in the Rustwater marshes, Tunbridge Wells finally caught up with its prey. The exhausted townlet had blundered into a sinking hole, and the suburb hit it, side on, without bothering to slow its thunderous speed. The impact tore the townlet to pieces, and splinters came raining down into the suburb streets as it turned and sped back to swallow the wreckage. "Meals on wheels!" the pirates howled. From their cage in the suburb's gut, Tom and Hester watched in horror as the dismantling engines went to work, ripping the townlet into heaps of scrap without even bothering to let the survivors off. The few who did come stumbling out were grabbed by the waiting pirates. If they were young and fit, they were dragged off to other tiny cages, like the one in which Hester and Tom had been imprisoned. If not, they were killed, and their bodies were added to the rubbish heap at the edge of the digestion yard. "Oh, great quirk," Tom whispered. "This is horrible. They're breaking every rule of municipal Darwinism." "It's a pirate suburb, Natsworthy," said Hester. "What did you expect? They strip their prey as quickly as they can and make the captive slaves in their engine rooms. They don't waste food and space on people who are too weak to work. It's not really so different from what your precious London gets up to. I mean, at least these lot have the honesty to call themselves pirates." The flash of a crimson robe out in the digestion yards caught Tom's eye. The mayor of the pirate suburb had come down to take a look at his latest catch, and he was strutting along the walkway outside the cells, surrounded by his bodyguards. He was a tiny little man, stooping and hunch-shouldered, a bald head and a scrawny neck jutting from the cat fur collar of his gown. He didn't look friendly. "He looks more like a moth-eaten vulture than a mayor," whispered Tom, tugging at Hester's sleeve and pointing. "What do you think he'll do with us?" She shrugged, glancing up at the approaching party. "We'll be slung into engine rooms, I suppose." Then she stopped short, staring at the mayor as if he was the most amazing thing she had ever seen. Shouldering Tom aside, she thrust her face against the bars of the cage and started to shout. "Peavey!" she hollered, straining to make herself heard over the thunder of the gut. "Peavey! Over here!" "Do you know him?" asked Tom, confused. "Is he a friend? Is he all right?" "I don't have friends," snapped Hester. "And he's not all right. He's a ruthless, murdering animal, and I've seen him kill people for just looking at him in a funny way. So, let's hope the catchers put him in a good mood. Peavey! Over here, it's me, it's Hester Shaw!" The ruthless, murdering animal turned towards their cage and scowled. "His name's Chrysler Peavey," Hester explained hoarsely. "He stopped to trade and stroll a couple of times when I lived there with Shrike. He was mayor of another little scavenger town. The gods alone know how he got himself a flash suburb like this. Now hush, and let me do the talking." Tom studied Chrysler Peavey as he came stalking over to peer at the captives, henchmen clustering behind. He wasn't much to look at. His lumpy scalp reflected the glare of furnaces, and the sweat draining off it made pale stripes in the grime on his face. As if to make up for his bald head, he had hair almost everywhere else, grubby white bristles pushing out of his chin, thick grey tufts sprouting from his ears and nostrils, and a pair of enormous bushy, wriggling eyebrows. A tarnished chain of office hung around his neck, and on one shoulder perched a scrawny monkey. "Who are they?" he said. "A couple of hitchhikers, boss. Your worship," said one of his guards, a woman whose hair had been plaited into two long, curving horns. "Come aboard in the middle of the chase, your worship," added another man who had overseen the newcomer's capture. He showed Peavey the coat he was wearing, the fleece-lined aviator's coat he had taken from Tom. I got this off of one of them. Peavey grunted. He seemed about to turn away, but Hester kept grinning her crooked grin at him and saying, "Peavey, it's me," until she lit a spark of recognition in his greedy black eyes. "Bloody hell," he growled. "It's the Tin Man's kid." "You're looking good, Peavey," said Hester, and Tom noticed that she didn't try to hide her face from the pirates, as if she knew that she mustn't let them see any sign of weakness. "Blimey," said Peavey, looking her up and down. "Blimey, it is really you, the stalker's little helper. All growed up and uglier than ever. Where's old Strikey, then?" "Dead," said Hester. "Dead? What was it? Metal fatigue?" He gave a great guffaw, and the bodyguards all joined in, obediently, until even the monkey on his shoulder started shrieking and rattling its chain. "Metal fatigue! Get it?" "So, how come you're running Tunbridge wheels?" asked Hester, while he was still wiping the tears from his eyes and chuckling. "The last I heard of this place, it was a respectable suburb. It used to hunt up north on the edges of the ice." Peavey chuckled, leaning against the bars. "Flashy, innit?" he said. "This place ain't my old town a couple of years back. They come racing up one day and scoffed it straight down. They was soft, though. They hadn't reckoned with me and my boys. So we busted out the gut and took over the old place, set the mayor and the council to work stoking their own boilers, settled ourselves down in their comfy houses and their posh town hall. No more scavenging for me. I'm a proper mayor now. His worship, Chrysler Peavey, at your service." Tom shuddered, imagining the dreadful things that must have happened here when Peavey's roughs took over. But Hester just nodded as if she was impressed. "Congratulations," she said. "It's a good town. Well built. You're taking a risk, though. If your prey hadn't stopped when it did, you'd have plunged straight into the heart of the rust water and sunk like a stone." Peavey waved the warning away. "Not Tunbridge wheels. This suburb's specialised. Myers and Marshalls don't bother us. There are fat towns hiding in these swamps, and fatter prey still, where I'm planning to go next." Hester nodded. "So, how about letting us out then?" she asked casually. "With all this prey to catch, you could probably use a couple of good tough helpers up top." "Nice try, Hetty, but you're out of luck. Prey's been short these last couple of years. I need all the loot and grub I can find just to keep the lads happy. And they won't be happy if I start bringing new faces aboard. Especially not faces as horrible as yours." He bellowed with laughter again, looking round at his bodyguards to make sure they were joining in. The monkey ran up to the top of his head and squatted there, chattering. "But you need me, Peavey," Hester told him, forgetting all about Tom in her desperation. "I'm not soft. I'm probably tougher than half of your best lads. I'll fight for a place up top, if that's what it takes." "Oh, I can use you all right," agreed Peavey, "but not up top. It's in the engine rooms where I need help. Sorry, Hetty." He turned away and beckoned to the woman with the horns. "Chain him up, Mags, and take him to the slave pits." Hester slumped down on the floor of the cage, despairing. Tom touched her shoulder, but she shrugged him irritably away. He looked past her, at Peavey stalking away across his blood-stained yards, and the pirates advancing on the cage with guns and manacles. To his surprise, he felt more angry than afraid. After all that they had been through, they were going to become slaves after all. It wasn't fair. Before he knew what he was doing, he was on his feet and pounding at the greasy bars, and, in a strange, thin-sounding voice, he heard himself shouting, "No." Peavey turned round. His eyebrows climbed his craggy forehead like mountaineering caterpillars. "No!" shouted Tom again. "You know her, and she asked you for help, and you ought to help her." Mags and the other guards all raised their guns and looked at Peavey expectantly, waiting for him to give the order to blow the impertinent prisoner to pieces. But he just stood and stared, and then came walking slowly back towards the cage. "What did you say?" he asked. Tom took a step backwards. When he tried to speak again, no words came out. "You're from London, aren't you?" asked Peavey. "I'd recognise that accent anywhere. And you're not from the nether boroughs neither. What tier did you come from?" "Two," stammered Tom. "Tier 2. Peavey looked round at his companions. "You hear that? That's almost High London, that is. This bloke's a High London gentleman. What did you want to go slinging a gentleman like this in the lock-up for, Mags?" But you said," Mags protested. "Never mind what I said!" screamed Peavey. "Get him out!" The horned woman fumbled at the lock until the door slid open, and the other pirates grabbed Tom and dragged him out of the cage. Peavey pushed him aside and started dusting him down with a sort of rough gentleness, muttering, "That's no way to treat a gentleman. Spanner, give him back his coat." "What?" cried the pirate wearing Tom's coat. "No way!" Peavey pulled out a gun and shot him dead. "I said, give the gentleman back his coat!" He shouted at the startled-looking corpse, and the other pirates hurried to pull the coat off and put it back on Tom. Peavey patted at the smouldering bullet hole on the breast. "Sorry about the blood," he said earnestly. "These blokes, they've got no manners. Please allow me to apologise most humbly for the misunderstanding, and welcome you aboard my humble town. It's an honour to have a real gentleman aboard at last, sir. I do hope you'll join me for afternoon tea in the town hall." Tom gaped at him. He'd only just realised that he wasn't going to be killed. Afternoon tea was the last thing he was expecting. But as the pirate mayor started to lead him away, he remembered Hester still cowering in the cage. "I can't leave her down here," he said. "What, Hetty?" Peavey looked bewildered. "We're travelling together," explained Tom. "She's my friend." "There's plenty of other girls in Tunbridge Wells," said Peavey. "Much better ones with noses and everything. Why, my own lovely daughter would be very pleased to make your acquaintance." "I can't leave Hester behind," said Tom, as firmly as he dared, and the mayor simply bowed and gestured to his men to open the cage again. At first, Tom thought that Peavey was interested in the same thing as Miss Fang, information about where London was headed and what had brought it out into the central hunting ground. But although the pirate mayor was full of questions about Tom's life in the city, he didn't seem to have much interest in its movements. He was just pleased to have what he called a High London gent aboard his town. He gave Tom and Hester a guided tour of the town hall and introduced them to his councillors, a rough-looking gang with names to match, Johnny Maggs and Thick Mungo and Steadfast Zeb, Pogo Nadgers and Zip Risky and the Traction Grad Kid. Then it was time for afternoon tea in his private quarters, a room full of looted treasures high in the town hall, where his rabble of whining, snot-nosed children kept getting under everybody's feet. His eldest daughter, Cortina, bought tea in delicate porcelain cups and cucumber sandwiches on a glass tray. She was a dim, terrified girl with watery blue eyes, and when her father saw that she hadn't cut the crust off the sandwiches, he knocked her backwards over the buffet. "Thomas here is from London," he shouted, hurling the sandwiches at her. He expects posh things, and you should have done him in little triangles. What can you do? He said, plaintively turning to Tom. I've tried to brung her up ladylike, but she won't learn. She's a good girl, though. I look at her sometimes and almost wish I hadn't shot her mum. He sniffed and dabbed at his eyes with a huge skull and crossbones hanky, and Cortina came trembling back with fresh sandwiches. The thing is, Peavey explained through a mouthful of bread and cucumber, the thing is, Tom, I don't want to be a pirate all my life. No, said Tom. No, said Peavey. You see, Tommy boy, I didn't have the advantages what you've got when I was a kid. I didn't get no education or nothing, and I've always been ugly as sin. Oh, I wouldn't say that, Tom mumbled politely. I had to look out for myself, in the dust heaps and the ditches, but I always knew one day I'd make it big. I saw London once, see, from a distance, like, off on its travels somewhere. I thought it was the most beautiful place I'd ever seen. All them tiers and the white villas up top, all shining in the sun. And then I heard about them rich people what live up there, and I decided that's how I want to live. All them posh outfits and garden parties and trips to the theatre. So I became a scavenger, and I got a little town of my own, and I got an even bigger one. But what I really want, he leaned close to Tom, what I really want is to be respectable. Yes, of course, agreed Tom, glancing at Hester. You see, what I'm thinking is this, Peavey went on. If this hunting trip works out like I hope, Tunbridge Wells is going to be rich soon. Really rich. I love this suburb, Tom. I want to see it grow. I want to have a proper upper level with parks and posh mansions and no oiks allowed, and elevators going up and down. I want Tunbridge Wells to turn into a city, a proper big city with me as Lord Mayor, something I cannon down to Miss Sproggs. And you, Tommy, I want you to tell me how a city ought to be and teach me manners, etiquette, like, so I can hobnob with other Lord Mayors and not have them laugh at me behind my back. And all my lads as well. They live like pigs at the moment. So, what do you say? Will you turn us into gentlemen? Tom blinked at him, remembering the hard faces of Peavey's gang and wondering what they'd do if he started telling them to open doors for each other and not to chew with their mouths open. He didn't know what to say, but in the end, Hester said it for him. It was a lucky day for you when Tom came aboard, she told the mayor. He's an expert on etiquette. He's the politest person I know. He'll tell you anything you want, Peavey. But, said Tom, and winced as she kicked his ankle. Lovely jubbly, cackled Peavey, spraying them both with half-eaten sandwich. You stick with old Chrysler, Tommy boy, and you won't go far wrong. As soon as we've scoffed our big catch, you can start work. It's waiting for us on the far side of these marshes. We should reach it by the end of the week. Tom sipped at his tea. In his mind's eye he saw again the great map of the hunting ground, the broad sweep of the Rustwater, and beyond it... Beyond the marshes, he said. But beyond the marshes there's nothing but the Sea of Kazakh. Relax, Tommy, chuckled Chrysler Peavey. Didn't I tell you Tunbridge Wells is specialised? Just you wait and see. Wait and see. Get it? Wait and see. He slapped Tom on the back and swigged his tea, his little finger delicately raised.